gentlemen, I mean, ladies, any ladies present?
Yes.
Oh, thank God you're there. Then I can say, otherwise it's just gentlemen. Herzlich willkommen. Da ist noch einer.
Any trans people, very careful about that nowadays. Inclusively have to be. So trans people, welcome.
Yes. Trans. Do ladies with that then?
I don't know.
Herzlich willkommen zu dieser letzte Tasting an dem Samstag bei der AQUAVITAE Tasting. Da haben wir 3 Abfüllungen von der Firma Adelphi. Wir haben allerdings auch 2 Leute von der Firma Adelphi, der Alex Brisson, Managing Director, und Charles McLean, unsere World Friends. My name is Chris Pepper, and the rest of this tasting will be in English.
Yeah,
okay.
we love the English.
For our friends down the front.
Thank you.
We are going to be pairing 3 whiskies with 3 foods today, or better said, we're going to be pairing 3 foods with 3 whiskies. The whiskies are the inspiration for the food. There's no there's no whiskey in the food, just in case any of you are pregnant. No, good. He was. No. Yeah, no, there's also a definite negative up there, up the back. Good. I will be talking about the food and the reason for the pairing, and Charlie and Alex will be talking about the whiskies and the reason they came in the bottle, I imagine. Okay. Our first whiskey, we're not allowed to call it whiskey, our first drink for the... Have you all drunk something this afternoon at the fair? No. Yeah? No. Well, this is going to be your first whiskey for today.
Can we discuss this question?
No, we are not open to discussion on any points of order at all. We have something that's not quite whiskey. It's been matured for how long?
Depends which cask.
It depends which cask, but we're not allowed to call it whiskey because one of the casks is less than, or more, at least one of the casks is less than 3 years maturation.
Oh dear.
Don't say oh dear, not before you tasted it. I will go through the tasting notes forthwith. You've all got the whiskey? Good.
Have you got one?
I've got a glass.
Left it in the car.
Right. Adlermachen is the name from this distillation, this bottling, 2018 AD. And this is what I got out of it. First of all, in the nose, then taste-wise, and then the finishing notes we got there. Okay, in the nose. You can all pick the glass up, please. So you're coming with me. Like the warehouse, if you ever go to...
In Deutsch. And you do it in German, and then we'll try and interpret.
Oh, no.
We're not friends.
Right, Charlie's been here for in Germany for 25 hours, and he thinks he's an expert. Right, we should do this part of the tasting in German as a special request from Mr. McLean. No, we don't want to translate it. It's going to be fun. So, wenn du, wie kann man das? Wenn du zum anderen Distillerie hingehst in ein Lagerhaus, einatmen und dann, da hast du diese Noten. Holznoten sind auch dabei, ziemlich reichhaltig, ist er auch. Reichhaltig?
Ja.
Ganz schöne Gewicht, also das ist kein leichter Ding, das ist also richtig schön integriertes Gewicht dabei. Der riecht älter als er ist, so wie manche Leute auf meine Linke sind. Der ist sehr malzig und dann, wenn der so halbe Stunde im Glas, dann kommt die Küsteneinfluss. Ademmerchen Distillerie liegt direkt an der Küste und da haben wir, oder warten wir eigentlich, richtig schöne Küstennoten, Salzigkeit würden auch reinpriesen. Auch eine leichte gemüsige Note ist da, also Würzelgemüse, aha, was haben wir im Glas? Ja, noch mehr Holz, allerdings frisches Holz, also frisch gesägtes Holz dabei. Äpfel, das vom Bäume runterfallen, schöne braune Flecken drauf haben. Die braune Äpfel. Oder als ich Kind war, haben wir Äpfel geklaut von Apfelbaum, ja klar. Und habe ich in meinen Kleiderschrank gelagert. Und dann logischerweise vergessen, die ganzen Dinge. Und nach 2 Monaten da drin, schön verfallen, schön verschimmelt waren die und dieser Geruch. Okay? Ja, lecker.
Ja? British and not Polish.
Ja. Oh, a little bit divisive at the back there, Mr. Sven. Okay, süße Noten kommen raus und eine florale Note. Allerdings die beiden letzten Noten war von ein leeres Glas über Nacht mit dem Deckel drauf und da rausgekommen. Okay. Are you following this, boys? So, geschmacklich. Please try all whiskies. Please. So, leichte Trockenheit, der hat 55,x%, 55,3%. Also diese Trockenheit kommt von Alkohol. Lass es ein bisschen länger im Mund, kriegst du eine schöne Malzigkeit, schöne Karamellnoten dabei. Trockenobst, allerdings Datteln, Feigen dabei. Leichte muffige Note, wieder unser Lagerhaus. Sehr voller Körper hat er auch und die malzigen Noten werden intensiver. Nachklang schön würzig, Holz, Malz, Karamell, süße Noten, bisschen Salz, bisschen Küstennoten dabei und wieder ein ganz schöner voller Körper. Im Gläschen haben wir einen Würzelgemüsesalat mit getrockneter Äpfel und obendrauf diese braune Fleck. Ist kein Hundescheiße, sag ich. It's not dog shit. Es ist ein Dattelgrillisch. Okay, ja, diese wunderschönen Noten rauszubringen. Mr. McLean, Mr. Bruce, please save me from this situation.
I think what Chris is trying to say is that it's a very complex whiskey.
Yeah.
It's a young whiskey. Obviously, it's not even whiskey because Alex will talk about the components, but it's not all over 3 years old. So therefore, it cannot be described as whiskey. So it's spirit.
Unless it's American.
I'm sorry. Unless it's American, 2-year-old American, but only if it's sold in America. Oh, we don't drink that.
That's all the real.
What was that word about Scheiße? The
Klugscheiße.
Scheiße.
Charlie hat ein neues deutsches Wort gelernt heute. Und da war ein perfektes Beispiel, was gemeint ist.
Yeah, I'm learning a bit. But anyway, it's a very, very impressive spirit from a very impressive distillery, which Alex will now tell you about.
So, for those of you who don't know, the Ardnamurchan distillery, which is another unpronounceable distillery, was founded in 2014 by Adelphi. We have been independent bottlers for the last 25 years. We built the distillery on land which belonged originally to some of our owners, and because it's such a remote place on the west coast of Scotland, we built it in such a way that it could fit with its surroundings. So all of the heat and power required by the distillery comes from local resources. So the heat is provided by wood chip, and the power comes from a hydroelectric dam and generator on the river. We wanted the style of the whiskey to be typically West Coast, not as much as Islay, so not heavily peated, but we still wanted it to have weight, to have maritime characteristics, and to have some peat smoke coming through. So every year we try to distill about 50% of both unpeated and 50% of peated, so that we have a balance of maturing stock for future blending to make whiskey. Now, the idea behind these early bottles, we released one in 2016, one last year, and now this one this year. This is literally being launched here this weekend. It's only just been bottled. The idea behind it is like a work in progress. We are not going to release our first single malt until another 2 years at least. We could officially bottle a whiskey today. We have stock which is already whiskey, but if you bottle it too early, you will never then have enough to mature for greater ages. So my goal at the moment is to distill as much as possible, fill it into the best possible wood, and store it in the warehouses. And obviously that costs a lot of money, but it's an investment for the future. So we are currently running 12 mashes a week. We are up to our full production capacity. We are filling about between 70 and 80 casks per week, and we'll do about 425,000 litres of alcohol in a year. So for a single malt brand, that is quite a lot. That's about twice the size of Springbank, just to put that into perspective. But the way I see single malt going around the world, we are very buoyant that in the future we will have the demand. So we have to fill the warehouses now, otherwise it will be too late. This particular batch is the first time not only that we have used whiskey in it, but also large proper casks, because the early two batches were from experimental 55-litre casks, the little octaves as we call them. And these casks bring on the spirit much more quickly, but they also they don't provide long-term complexity because the wood takes over too quickly, so you have to bottle them young. This year, however, our larger casks, the ones that we'll be using for single malt in the future, have now begun to come through and are drinking really well. So we selected 4 sherry butts, the big 500 litres, 2 sherry hogsheads, 250 litres, and I think 20 or 21 of the little also. It's about 50-50, peated and unpeated. The youngest component is 1 year old, so that's what it is technically. It's a 1 year old. Nobody. And the oldest component, I'm not allowed to tell you what age unless you ask me, but you can guess anyway.
Oh, what is the age?
Well, funny you should ask that. It's about 2 weeks short of its 4th birthday. So it's 3 and a lot. Just another thing on the bottle, it's a very different style of bottle. I think a couple of people commented as I was coming around. We designed this for the 16 release 2 years ago, and we wanted to show off, being a new distillery, we wanted to show off the area of Ardnamurchan. So the bottle is coated in a colour which is very similar to the stone, to the rock in Ardnamurchan. We live up there, or we are up there in basically a very, very old, massive volcano, which used to belong to Canada, and it came across to Europe, as they do. Yes. Very slowly. Anyway, so you get this beautiful kind of molten lava, old ancient molten lava. It's a geological paradise for people who like looking at stones. But of course, in true Adelphi style, we want you to see the natural side of it as well. So we want you to see the colour, this natural colour. So we have a little window so you can see it. And the window is shaped like a hydrometer, which you would normally measure alcohol with, just for a bit of fun. And then coming off this hydrometer is the story, from the field to the bottle. So we want to be very transparent about how we make this whiskey or spirit. We've also gone one stage further by my latest thing I'm working on for the food and drink industry in Scotland is the use of blockchain, which you might more readily associate with cryptocurrencies. But in fact what it is, it's like a digital DNA. And you can use it for food product very, very cleverly, because you can trace it all the way from the field, from the primary source, all the way through to the retail outlet. So whether it's a pig to a pork chop, or barley to a bottle of whiskey. So everything, all that information is stored as we produce it. It's all uploaded into this incorruptible chain, and you can then download it as a consumer and read how the thing was made, right the way through to the who bottled it and on what day. So that's quite fun. We'll carry on doing that with all our Ardnamurchan stock as time goes on. Next year there will, funnily enough, be the 2019 AD, and then in 2020, about this time, we are hoping to release, we've already chosen the cask, we are hoping to release our first single malt Ardnamurchan Scotch whisky, which will be a single cask as a big launch, and then followed by, in 2021, the main event, if you like, single malt. But if you're in Scotland, please come and visit us. It's a very remote place. It takes a long time to get there, but it's well worth it.
The most interesting single track road.
If you do come just remember as you're driving down that road that we had to bring our stills, our mash tun, and all the big equipment down it. The company that delivered our boiler on 2 large lorries all the way from Switzerland, one of the trucks tried to do it in the dark, and he was following his GPS. The GPS had the postcode. Now what he didn't realise is that there are only about 100 people living in 20 miles in Ardnamurchan, so one postcode does a long stretch. So anyway, his sat-nav said, his GPS said in Swiss, well done, you've arrived, or something, turn right, in the dark, of course. And he turned his huge lorry with all this expensive boiler equipment on the back into someone's front garden. And then, being the west coast of Scotland, the whole truck then sank. So the following day, luckily we had a very, very large crane on site building the distillery. So that was dispatched 5 miles back to pick the lorry out of the garden. Unfortunately, the crane met the school bus on that road, and both of them did that. They flipped, blocked the road completely, and the only crane big enough to get that crane up to the was in Glasgow, which is about 4.5 hours away. So we weren't very popular. But it's well worth a visit.
If you can find it.
Any questions on Ardnamurchan? Everyone happy? It's young, but it's got as Charlie pointed out earlier, it's got a lot of individual character, and that's what we're trying to get. We want this to be a very distinct whisky when it's grown up, and true to its location, so West Highland.
Is there something in the distillation process you find extraordinary that adds this maturity to this, or is it cask management?
Certainly wood is very, very important to cask management. I mean, we're spending a fortune on the casks themselves. It is the hallmark of Dr. Jim Swan, the late great Dr. Jim. For those of you who never met or heard of him, he designed and built a number of distilleries, really probably from the late 90s. I think he went in, one of his first so-called experiments was to go in and revive Glengarry distillery in the late 90s. He changed the whole way they were distilling there. And he had this sort of magic, he's a chemist basically, he had this magic kind of jigsaw of events during distillation, or during all the way through, mashing, fermentation, distillation, wood. And if you put them all together, all this series of events, in the way that he wanted them to go together, you basically bypass the need to oxidize during maturation. So your maturation came on much more quickly. Now, we encompassed that design, we did everything he said, and then we tweaked it with his blessing. Because the one issue with it is it's quite light. And a lot of the new spirits that he designed are very fresh, very fruity, very clean, but quite light, and that way they mature more quickly as well. We wanted a heavier, more oilier, richer style. So we did a few things just to tweak it. One of them was to use the rakes in the mash tun, just to bring the oils up a little bit more. But basically we've kept to his original design. Yeah, come and see it. It's a very traditional distillery in the way we work it. We have all local team there now. We have 13 people running it and showing people around. And they love what they're doing. They want to talk to you. They want to tell you how they're doing. No, it's great. No computers at all. Good.
Good.
Now, chef, which is the next whiskey?
We've got the Brezzavianos next. If you, Sven, could you collect, please? Thank you. Righty-ho, ladies and gents. Zweite whiskey is in glass. The second whiskey has been poured almost with everybody. Alex is. Oh well. Some people aren't going to get it.
No, we've got more. We have.
We've only got one glass.
Alex will show.
We've all got, almost all of us got the second whiskey. We'll quickly go through the tasting notes and look what we got. In German?
In German.
In German. So, in der Nase, richtig entspannt. Trotz die, wie viel Prozent hat er? Was? 58,5. Trotz der 58,5% ist richtig, ganz genau. Bisschen Rauch kommt raus, ein bisschen Honig, leichte Kräutrigkeit ist auch dabei. Die Rauchigkeit wird über die Zeit intensivieren. Dann kommt eine leichte Küstennote, also eine leichte Salzigkeit, eine leichte Jodhaltigkeit, leichte malzige Noten und das gerne in Großbritannien sind Digestive Biscuits. Ja, frisch Eichennote sind auch dabei, wieder eine ganz leichte Torfigkeit und ein Mentholnote ist dabei, also Honig-Hüstenbonbons in diese Richtung. So, geschmacklich. Ja, a virtual glass. Wieder diese ganz angenehme leichte Küstennoten dabei, auch ein ganz bisschen Holzrauch dabei, also die beiden gemischt. Schöne voller Körper, die Honignoten sind auch da, lässt der Whisky ein bisschen länger im Mund und dann entwickelt das ganz schön. Malzigkeit ist dabei, robust, der wird ein bisschen kräftiger, die Inselkeit wird etwas stärker und wieder eine schöne Mentholnote ist dabei. You were talking about this. Yeah, menthol.
Menthol.
Yeah. You say cooling. Yeah.
Yeah. If you breathe in, it's fairly cooling.
Der trockene Finish mit Trockennoten, Torfig, Honig, Salz, Eiche, Malz und eine leichte Würzigkeit, Kumin, Koriander in diese Richtung ist dabei. Dazu gibt es ein kleines Dörtchen.
Was?
Dörtchen? Ich liebe diese Wahl. A tart. We got a nice tart. Nice tart for you. With honeyed and herbed pumpkin, and on top is bacon. It's been lightly put in a pot. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Over to you, sir.
Right. So,
What's going on?
Adelphi, as an independent bottler, for those of you who don't know, basically we select single casks of Scotch whisky that other people have made that more or less Charlie and I like to drink. That's the simplest way of explaining it. We will only bottle something under the Adelphi label if we like it. And by liking it, I mean that you want to enjoy it, to drink it. Not just because it's a famous name or it's very old or whatever. It's actually got to be a nice drink. And we're very happy, as long as it's got flavour, we're very happy to put it in a bottle.
And if I can just throw in here, I advise a number of independent bottlers. Adelphi, I've been advising since 1992-93. And Adelphi, hand on heart, sets the highest standard, and has always done so, of for the quality of the whiskies. Well, as you say, the way we like them, of all the other companies that I work for. Indeed, well, the last time you did a count, Alex, apparently we reject, I mean, obviously, before Alex brings samples to me, he's gone through them with his team, and then only the ones that they think are possible Adelphi bottlings comes to me. We look at them, we consider them again, and apparently we reject 85%.
So during the course of buying casks, so more and more nowadays, I will go out and just buy a whole parcel of mature stock. I won't even look at it until we've got it into our warehouse. The reason I can do this is that anything which isn't suitable, I'm not saying good or bad, just not suitable, I can then use to trade on. I can swap it for other stuff to keep this stock movement happening. And if you look at that in a snapshot of a year, I suppose, we are accepting about one cask in every 35 to 40 that we get through the door, and the rest are then moved on. Sometimes we will leave them for a bit longer because we think they've still got something to give. But generally speaking, if it's not right when we try it, we just move it on. And that's the way it works. And to be honest,
it doesn't go to waste.
Without having that stock to trade, we wouldn't really have a business, because you can't just walk in with a checkbook or a bank card. If you're lucky, you might get offered a cask, but it will be a stupid price. I mean, cash sales, I got offered a bunch of casks last week from someone who's in the trade, but I think it's actually either looking for an early retirement or to pay for his daughter's wedding or something, I'm not quite sure. But he had a parcel of whiskey, and he had been looking at auction prices of bottles and casks, especially in the Far East recently. And he had 3 1990 sherry hogsheads of Macallan. There was no indication on the price list how much volume was left of them, but he had a fixed price. Anyone like to guess what that might have been per cask?
28
100,000. A lot.
120,000.
Yeah.
Each. Now, things, you know, the retail market, this crazy Far Eastern retail market has changed a lot in recent years. We bought one of the last casks from Macallan I bought was in 2006. It was a lovely sherry hogshead. It was 1976, 30 years old. It was called the Black Mac because it was very dark. We bought the cask, I'll be perfectly honest, we bought the cask for £4,500.
I'll take it.
There was a bottle on auction. One of those bottles came up on auction a couple of months ago, and there was more than the cask. So that's what's happening in that sector. We are completely away from that sector. We're not trying to compete. If I get offered a cask and it goes silly in price, I'd leave it. I don't even bother looking at it, which is a shame. But I'm not going to stick a stupid price on it at the other end. So we rely on this trading stock to swap with the distilleries that we've worked with and brokers for the best part of 25 years. And long may that continue. Touch.
Shall I start with my story about the Adami?
Yes.
As you may know, there was a bottle of Macallan Adami sold at auction about 10 days ago, whatever, it was Wednesday week, and it fetched, with all the taxes, £875,000. Subsequently, I was talking to a good friend of Alex and I, who is a great collector and a great whiskey man, and he had actually sold that bottle to the guy who was selling it at auction. He sold it in 2006 for £6,000.
Oh no.
Oh no. And I said to him, God, were you not really pissed off? No, no. He said, I'm very happy, I've got 2 more. But I mean, the Asian price, I mean, the auction prices are just mad.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
It really is.
And like even when we're looking at simple bottles like the Highland Park Dolphin or
Yeah.
any semi-special bottle of whiskey, like the new McLean that came out, the Inky Black.
And the one that they released when they opened the new distillery, that was selling, what was it, 500 quid, then 5,000 pounds,
Yes,
or whatever it was.
but that also happened with the Erie Black.
I mean,
Yeah.
there is, I mean, now that we're distilling as well as bottling, there is a certain, and we all know things get more expensive, and in recent years, making whiskey has got a lot more expensive, down to currency fluctuations, down to this year, for example, one of the big things which is going to hit us, or next year, 2019, barley prices. So malting barley, we had a very, very strange season right across Europe for barley. In Scotland, we had an incredibly late spring, so it was still very, very cold when we were planting the barley in April. And we then had a scorching dry hot summer, like you did. No rain at all for 2 months. And then just about when the combines were coming out to harvest, the heavens opened and it rained for 3 weeks solid. So it was the worst possible combination. However, we got away with it. Because it was a cold spring, the barley never grew very high, so the rain didn't actually affect it too much when it came in August and September. In England, however, and across Europe, where a lot of barley comes in for Scotch whisky, they had a terrible harvest because of the heat and the drought. So the price has gone up substantially by about 10%, and the yield, because of the way the harvest was, is going down by about 10%. So all in all, it's costing us a lot more, and that's one of the biggest constituents in terms of price cost.
Is there going to be any knock-on effect with the bourbon
Casks?
casks? Mr. Trump and the EU putting tariffs on them.
Who knows? Who knows?
Don't go there, Stick to your job.
I know my place, sir, I know my place.
In terms of bourbon casks, I think we're actually in an okay place with the current presidency, because he's very pro-American jobs.
Okay.
And the whole point about bourbon casks only being used once is to protect basically the coopers of Kentucky, the guys who make them. If they could be used more than once, then lots of coopers would be out of jobs. Yes. So hopefully that will continue.
Could you tell us which whiskey is behind this one?
Yeah, I'm getting there. Is that? Sorry, I was getting there. Right. So the whiskey you did have, this falls under our what we call the Breath of Angels range. So this is where we buy casks, not illegally, but we buy them in the knowledge that we're not allowed to be bottling them as single malt. So the only way we can bottle them as single malt is by not naming them, by not naming the distillery. So it's still very much a single malt from a very famous distillery, in this case on an island. We do differentiate between Islay and the rest of the islands. So this is not Islay, it's one of the other islands.
So you can guess.
Is it?
You guess straight away. Yeah.
So it's either Scapa or Highland Park.
It could be.
Then it must be Highland Park.
It could be.
He's not allowed to say
I
that,
could
right?
possibly
I think so.
But yeah, we have Breath of the Isles, we have Breath of Speyside, same principle again. The great thing about Scotch whisky is that everything we do is audited, is reported to Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. So even if we don't know where these come from, because our supplier doesn't tell us, as soon as the paperwork comes in with the cask, we can trace it back to the original owner, not necessarily distillery, but owner. And in this case, well, in the case of the next one, it was Edrington. In fact, in case of both of them, it was Edrington. So yeah, but this one is not a single cask. It's two casks together. It's two sherry hogsheads, the Breath of the Isles, but it's still bottled at natural strength, natural colour, unchill filtered, in the same way we would do our single casks. Is that enough about the whiskey? I'm trying to think if there's something else. It's aged 11 years. 11 years old. 58.5, you said that?
I did.
Yeah, from the islands.
So, what are we getting on the nose? And what I want to ask you is, how has it gone with the tartlet? Okay. The chef done a reasonable job on pairing with this rather delicious, slightly fruity, slightly smoky whiskey. Did you all get that in your tub?
Did you enjoy it?
What was in your tub?
It was honeyed pumpkin and herb pie with bacon on top. Bacon.
Lardon.
Every day. Yeah.
Cricket time.
Sorry.
So Adelphi, I joined Adelphi in 2004. Back in those days, it was just me and one other person who was kind of doing the books. And thanks to everyone for drinking it, we had to find more people to help us. And by 2010, we had a warehouse and a small bottling facility. I say facility in inverted commas. We have this amazing, we have two amazing labelling machines. One is a state-of-the-art Italian. Are there any Italians here? No? Any Italians?
Sorry, Dutch.
Good. Right. So we have a state-of-the-art Italian machine which tends to take long lunches. So you can go along, and one time it's absolutely fantastic. The labels come off, they go on the right side of the bottles come out in the boxes, and everyone's great. And then within the blink of an eye, there'll be 10 labels on the wrong side of the box. And it'll be flying across the room.
I'm married to an Italian wife, okay?
So the other state-of-the-art labelling machine, which is preferred by our bottling team, is basically a plank of wood with a little slot on it for putting the bottle on top and hand labelling. And that's the one we use most of the time. One of the things that I'm learning, I'm more sort of marketing, that was my kind of upbringing in the business. And quite often marketing and operations don't go hand in hand. When I designed this bottle, which I'm delighted to say won the Scottish Design Award in 2017. When I designed it,
Very fancy.
When I designed it, and then it arrived, and the labels arrived, and I gave them to our bottling team, they said, "You do realise that won't go through the labelling machine." So they now have 1, 2, 3. A wrapper and 4 labels to stick on every bottle. Anyway, it keeps them off.
Keeps them busy.
But no, there are now 25 of us in the company. We're split between Fife, where we do the bottling and grow the barley, most of the barley for the distillery, and Ardnamurchan, where we have the operations team and visitor centre. And then also in Ardnamurchan, we've started a program of local employment, so educating the youth of Ardnamurchan. So there's a local charity, the Ardnamurchan Trust, and we basically have sold them some casks of new make spirit at a heavily discounted price, so basically cost. They then allocate a cask per child in the area. And there aren't that many children to drink it. On the assumption that when the child turns 18 and it becomes legally allowed to drink or deal in alcohol, they then sell it back to us at the market value, make a profit, and that profit they use for their tertiary, their university education. We hope they then come back to work for us. and in the meantime we trained them in everything to do with Scotch whisky. And when we launched this, it got a lot of really good press, which is fantastic. But one of the national newspapers, the Times, bearing in mind this is read by quite a few people, headlined. They came out with a headline: Highland Distillery gives free whiskey to 10-year-olds. Needless to say, the phone was quite busy.
A lot of 10-year-olds.
With drinkaware.com.
My daughter's only 9.
But it was, that was good. Right, thanks, Whisky.
Righto, ladies and gents, we are with whiskey number 3 and little thing to eat number 3. We find ourselves with this one in the space side and see what he, she or it can do for us. Right, the nose, lots and lots of sherry. Wow. Oak. Oh God, I'm oh, do it, Joe. It's very clean. Some nutty notes arrive, bit of hazel. It comes along. Some chocolatey notes are also there, slightly buttery. Some fruit, but not what I expected originally from a sherry cask. It's dry fruit, yeah, but it's not prunes or anything like that. Nothing like. It's quite light. Stewed yellow stone fruit I put there. Vanilla, also there, light caramel notes. Sunny autumn day, like today was, and a vaguely minty note. It's cooling as well, just like Breath of the Isles, also a slightly cool note there. Taste-wise, lots of sherry. It's quite dry. It's quite a bit of alcohol again. How much can you help me? 58.2. Yes, 58.2. Also quite clean. Let it in your mouth a little bit longer. You start getting cocoa. The nuttiness comes along. The caramel notes are there. It becomes a bit fresher. Our fruit arrives as well. The apricots in that form, and this very slight acidity is also present. Finish-wise is tangy, oaky again. Also, the yellow fruits, the apricots, nectarines perhaps also. Cocoa, vanilla, minty fresh, and hazelnuts once again right at the end. We have here, those who have still got it, apricots. They've been stewed in sherry. They've been dried apricots stewed in sherry. Bring out these notes, and that is surmounted by a chocolate and hazelnut mousse. And the green, somebody rather unkindly, I must say, said he was radioactive juice I put on is a mint syrup. Around. Okay. Although I found radioactive juice quite funny. I've got some vitamins from drinking. And I shall hand you seamlessly over to we didn't have right, yes, in terms of which distillery, of course, this is another of these casks we're not allowed to name. This one, of course, is called Breath of Speyside. So you have quite a large number of distilleries to choose from. But like with the last one, we do know that this one comes from Edrington. So 11 years ago, Edrington had 3
Name them.
competitions in Speyside.
3 distilleries in Speyside owned by Edrington.
Evaloa?
Nope. No. Yes, Macallan. And no, you're right. Yeah, well, it's being sold, so it's not Speyside. Third one. It's been they've sold this third one to Ian McLaren. Tamdu. Well done. So we've got a choice of Tamdu, Macallan, and Glenrothes.
And it's not.
No.
First fill sherry?
It's all 120,000 pounds.
Yeah, Alex, first fill sherry?
Yeah, so the way we do this, just to protect our supplier even more, the aisles we actually bought the casks, in the casks. This one, however, which comes from a different supplier, we taste the samples, we then select the ones we want to buy. They then, without us seeing, they then take the casks and put them into a plastic tank, a transport tank, which they then ship to us. So they're still individual. Each one is one sherry butt, one 500 litre sherry butt. I don't know if it's first fill or refill. I'm assuming it's refill, a good refill. But that is literally all we know. We know Speyside and the fact that it was from a sherry butt, and it's 11 years old.
But yeah, no, but you can track it back.
Anyway, well, we know it's from Edmonton because we have the paper.
Yeah. So whatever you think it is, it's great.
Answers on the postcard. That's what I was going to
And it goes very well with cherry infused apricots.
Indeed.
With which kind of sherry did you infuse the apricot?
That was Oloroso.
Unfortunately, most bottlings don't have the sherry actually mentioned on it. So I assume it's Oloroso, and I usually go for Oloroso. Either it's Fino or the Pedro Jimenez, and I would have chosen those.
So I'm learning a lot more about sherry as a region as I go down to buy casks. So twice a year now I'm down there buying for American. And we buy from two different types of suppliers. We have one which a lot of the industry use, which is a cooper that basically makes the casks and then seasons them with sherry for a few years, and then you buy it. The great thing about those casks is that the wood is still very active because it's fresh. But you have also great consistency. You don't have to worry about potential sulfur or something not being active enough or whatever. You know every cask is going to do its job within certain parameters. However, we also use a very, very fine Pedro Jimenez bodega. And these guys have been making PX or growing PX grapes for hundreds of years, always in the same family. And what they have are two Celeras. They have their traditional Celera, which is the stack of casks, which basically you remove the bottom layer into bottle, and you take the next layer to the bottom, and the layer above that to the one below that, and so on. And then you refill the top layer with younger stuff coming through. Celera, yeah. So they have two of these Celeras, the traditional one, and some of them have been there for hundreds of years. Then they have their finishing Celera, and for this one they use fresh wood every 5 to 10 years. They'll change the casks. They'll get new American oak barriques in. So these American oak barriques have had really, really old sherry in them, hundreds of years plus in some cases. But they're also, the wood is still quite fresh. And because they have to replace the wood every 5 to 10 years, we can come along and buy those casks. So I'm getting both those ones and the seasoned ones.
I've never heard of that in any other whiskey company. It's very, very interesting.
There aren't, well, we're keeping very secret about who it is.
Yes, they shush, don't tell anybody. Don't go on.
But what I would say is, the other thing, I'm learning a lot more about how things like PX came to be. So Pedro Jimenez, I don't know if you know this, is actually the Spanish name for a German called Peter Siemens. And Peter Siemens, travelling to the New World in wherever, as was customary in those days, used to basically carry what you did. And in his case, he was a winemaker. And he was carrying in his back pocket, so to speak, a couple of Riesling vines. And he decided to plant them in southern Spain. So Pedro Jimenez is actually Riesling, grown in a different place. It's a much different climate. The guys that we buy from do the full-blown air-dried, sun-dried PX, like you expect, the really sweet stuff. But they also treat it as table wine, so you can actually buy PX from them like a Riesling for a normal glass of wine, and it's extraordinarily similar. It is nuttier, it's richer because of the sun, but it still has that lovely paraffin, honey taste, the contrast coming through. So really, really interesting. If you ever get a chance to try it.
So you're not having any troubles with wood management or cask management? I mean,
For the distillery?
sounds like you're getting really good.
No, I mean it's because we have come from being an independent bottler from that angle rather than a distiller. It's something that we're really concentrating on, and we are spending a lot of money.
Because it's ludicrously expensive, isn't it?
I mean each of these sherry casks, the 225 and the 250 litre casks, are coming in at about €700 each, empty.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind I'm filling 80 casks a week at the moment, or it's between 70 and 80. We're not always, I mean we're filling about 65% to 70% is American ex-bourbon, because it has to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise we'd have gone bust, you know, within a week. They're coming in at about $130 US dollars delivered, so that's slightly better. The Spanish casks, we're now concentrating on the ones from this bodega. We only fill about 120, 150 of those a year. Last year, as an experiment, we filled only 1 month of production into them, and that month we simply distilled Golden Promise barley, so a very old varietal. So that combination can be quite interesting. It will take longer to mature, but I'm looking forward to that.
So you don't use Golden Promise as a standard?
No, I mean it's too expensive and the yield is just ridiculous. So our average yield in the distillery is 408 litres of alcohol per tonne of malted barley, which is quite good for a small distillery. The big guys get about 415 to 420. Some of the normal smaller ones get about 390. As soon as we moved to Golden Promise, it dropped to 378. And we also pay 20% more per tonne. However, the flavour profile is completely different. This oiliness that you'd expect.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened, my ops director, Gordon, he was up at the distillery that day when they started it for the first time. And the operators were treating it like concerto, the normal barley that we were using. And they milled it, they mashed it, they popped it into one of the washbacks, added the yeast, and then walked away. And expecting to come back 72 hours later and move it to the still. Gordon walked through just observing, and here was washback number 1, literally about to explode. And the froth was going, woof, like this. So he shouted through to Scott, who put the yeast in. Is that normal? No. So we have the switches on.
You always compare to using just the bourbon cask and sherry cask. You're looking forward to using some special European maybe wine casks or import wine casks for that?
Well, my gut feeling, if you like, is that we should only use casks that have had something in them before which has oxidized. Now that might sound a bit odd, but I feel that it's very important that the previous incumbent, so is that the tertiary stage of maturation? I can't remember now. You have subtractive, extractive, and interactive. So it's the extractive, the second stage of maturation, which kicks in quite early on, is when the incumbent, the previous juice, previous liquid, starts, if there's anything in the walls of the wood, will start to blend in with your spirit. And my gut feeling is that if that is not of similar maturation type, then it will contrast rather than complement. Now, I know there are some beautiful wine-finished whiskies out there. It's just not what we like personally. So we will use port casks. We will probably use Madeira casks. Other than that,
It does. Are you meaning for whole maturation or for finishing?
Oh, maybe. Both of them.
Yeah.
You use them for whole maturation?
Well, to be honest, I don't think that wine casks for total maturation are a very good thing. Ex-sherry, that's a fortified wine. But wine it doesn't go with Scotch spirit, in my view. It can, very carefully handled, make a very interesting, add interesting layers of flavour to mature whiskey.
Yeah.
So matured in the usual way, and then re-racked into active port casks, wine casks, Cote de Rome, whatever.
we have actually done it before with Adelphi. You won't have seen it here because it was done for someone else. It was for the wine company, the winemaker. It was a Sicilian wine company called Planeta, and they sent us some barrique, which had their wine in it, and we finished off single cask that we had selected for Adelphi for about 6 months. And they were great. I mean, they were really nice, but they were finishes. They weren't full maturation, and it was already
It's
mature.
resold in Italia.
It went straight back to them. Yeah, we simply did the job for them and sold them the cask. And I'm actually, hopefully, if all goes to all plan, next month I'm meeting a Swiss Scots winemaker. So a Scotsman who makes wine in Switzerland.
Wait, what?
He's actually really good wine. A guy called Jamie McCulloch, and his importer is the wine merchant that we share a warehouse with in Scotland. And we met through that, and he said, "Oh, can I send you a barrel and you can fill it with whiskey?" So we'll give it a look. But we taste the wine. We see the kind of profile of the wine. It gives us an idea of potentially which casks to re-rack into to finish it.
And I have to say, Hans here allowed me to taste a sample of the Distiller's Edition Lagavulin, the first edition.
That was Stefan.
Oh, it was Stefan. No, sorry, it wasn't Hans. It was somebody's day. And that was released in 79?
Released in '98, but
98.
distilled in '79.
Yeah, right. And had been finished in
PX.
PX. It was unbelievable that the first release of this Lagavulin Distiller's Edition. Unbelievable, legendary, and so it can work extraordinarily well. But
But that's still fortified though.
it is, yeah. And I think that Diageo's the so-called Distiller's Editions for their so-called classic malts, they were all fortified. They were, and so I think Alex is absolutely right. Fortified wine is better than just straightforward wine, and. Well,
I mean, it's something that Jim Swan, funny enough, we had a long discussion about it. He had this program, very interesting program. One of his biggest distilleries, which he designed, was Kavalan in Taiwan, and it grew and grew and grew and grew to the extent that he could not. All his wood suppliers in Kentucky and Spain, he could not supply enough to keep Kavalan going. So he, with their help, he started a special cooperage in Portugal, doing what they called STR, which is basically de-char, re-char, so scraping out the char and refiring them, but using European, so French oak wine casks. And all of the production there went to Kavalan, these STR casks. So he said by actually getting into the wood to strip them out and then re-charring them, it took away a lot of that potential.
And what are they seasoning them with after scraping and
I don't think he
de-char?
did. I think he just de-char, re-char and off to Taiwan.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I think we're doing very well.
Oh, it's time to go. Okay. Right. I think in that case.
Yeah, sorry. We haven't. Did we say how old the whiskey will be coming with? It's 11. It's 11.
I love it. That's going to be lovely soft.
All the leading legs.
Right, ladies and gents, I think we have said all we can about. First of all, did you enjoy the food, by the way? You didn't? Well, I'm sorry. I didn't let the extra people in.
The last combination might work very good. I love the whiskey. Great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sven, at the back. The spoon monitor. Right, in that case, I shall say thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoyed your day here. You hope you especially enjoyed your tasting with us three at the front. Have a lovely remainder of what today is the fair. I think you might get a tram or something like that if you're lucky, and a safe journey home and a lovely Sunday. Don't forget the clocks go back tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.